A very good evening, everybody. I want to ask you to stand up, all of you. And now I want to ask you to sit down. And now I'm going to tell you that this has nothing to do with my talk. My brother yesterday advised me to energize my audience because I am the last one to speak tonight. So I hope I succeeded. How amazing to be standing here in front of you tonight. It's a very special evening because I'm about to tick off a very special item on my bucket list, doing an actual TED Talk. Now, what makes it that I can stand in the front of a bunch of people that I don't know and still want to share a very personal story? I must be crazy, no? Well, I think I can explain. And it has a lot to do with the main theme of tonight, trust. And as I say that out loud, I know I must sound even more crazy because I just told you that we don't know each other. So how can I trust you? Well, that I can also explain. I trust you because I feel like we're here tonight for the same reasons. Just like me, you are here because you are interested in the stories of other people. You maybe want to be inspired by them, you want to learn new things. Just the fact that you are here to be part of this amazing event makes me feel a connection with you. And it's based on this connection that I build a trust. Common grounds. Is that what it would take? Let's see if we have more in common, and let me properly introduce myself. My name is Ibtisam Boulahrouz. I'm 29 years old, born and raised in a small city in the Netherlands. I grew up in a warm and lovely family, being the oldest of 4, and my parents worked very hard to give us everything we needed and motivated us to unlock our potential and maximize our personal growth. So we did, all 4 of us in our own way. A very expensive joke for my parents, as we all included a study at the university. For me, personally, it meant chasing my childhood dream of becoming a doctor. And fortunately, I just started with my residency to become a general practitioner, better known in Dutch as a huisarts. As I tell you my story, I know it sounds like the story of a typical Dutch woman, right? But if I tell you to look at my name, you would tell me that it's anything but Dutch. As a matter of fact, most Dutch people prefer to call me Ties, as pronouncing my full name can be quite a challenge. A fun fact I want to share with you is I started as a child to collect all the wrong pronunciations of my name. And now, 29 years later, I can fill a whole bookshelf. I have an Arabic name, and that is because my parents originally are from Morocco. With the Dutch culture, but also with the Moroccan one. And to make it even more complicated, when I chose my high school, I chose bilingual education, which meant that 70% of my classes were taught in English. That makes me speak 4 languages and deal with a lot of different people. I can see you all think, hello, identity crisis. Growing up with so many different people and speaking all these languages could be very difficult at times, I must admit, certainly as a child. I started asking questions. Why am I so different from everybody else? And why can I not fit in just one of these groups? I mean, I have so many. So I started to ask these questions my parents because I thought maybe they would know. Dad, why am I so different from my classmates? Mom, why do we cook different dishes than my friends? Dad, why did my geography teacher tell me that I'm Moroccan when just last week my grandfather told me, you're not Moroccan, you're too Dutch? My parents patiently tried to answer all of my questions, and they kept telling me that I should focus on the similarities, on the things I have in common. And they would end their message with the same mantra over and over and over again. So soon this became our family mantra. They would say, Ibtisam, although we are different from the outside, you must remember we're all the same on the inside. Please remember my family mantra, as it became one of the most important life lessons I have learned so far. So, as my upbringing was complete, and I hope my parents agree with that, I developed a certain way to deal with all the people in my life. I'd like to compare myself with a chameleon. As you might know, a chameleon has the incredible ability to adjust its color to its surroundings. And what fascinates me about this color changing is that it's an internal process. The chameleon owns all its colors. It's not like he's changing an outfit or something like that. No, they come up from its core. For me, it is kind of the same. Like a chameleon, I am forced by my bicultural upbringing, and that's a good thing though, to bring up a different color in every different situation. Obviously, I cannot change my physical appearance every time I meet a new person, but for me, it's searching for a common ground. Because once I find my common ground with the person I'm dealing with, a kind of trust develops. And certainly, at that moment, understanding and communicating with each other becomes so much easier. And just like a chameleon, I own all my colors. It's not like I pretend to be someone else or try to mimic the characteristics I see in front of me. No, I just dig up a characteristic that I already own. As I'm getting older and wiser, I hope, I'm adding more and more and more colors to my list. To give you a few examples of the colors I already own, I am Dutch Ibtisam, I'm Moroccan Ibtisam, I am daughter, granddaughter, sister, friend Ibtisam, I'm fear of flying Ibtisam, I am Muslim Ibtisam, I am allergic Ibtisam, I'm in love with watermelon Ibtisam. I am a lot, just like all of you. Now remember my family mantra, different from the outside, yet the same from the inside. I think we all have a moment in our lives that advice or a cheesy question on a cheesy answer on a question we had as a child suddenly makes sense in the adult world. I see a few of you nodding. Familiar, right? Well, I had that moment during my first day on the operation room as a resident in medical school. I was very excited to finally see a living person from the inside, and the surgeon gave me the task of prepping the patient. This meant that I had a long list of questions I had to ask the patient, and that is the way we collected the information before the operation could commence. First patient came in, I took my task very seriously, so I asked all the questions and I went back into the operation room. The surgeon opened up the abdomen, and I couldn't help but be mesmerized. So much beauty, so much detail, so much structure in the organs I saw. That made me that I couldn't wait to see the next patient. What would be next? So I rushed into the room of the second patient, again asked all the questions, a little bit more quick than with the first patient, and I rushed back into the operation room. Start, I said. I want to see what's next. As the surgeon opened the second abdomen, right there, in that moment, my family mantra hit me. I interviewed these two men. I did that, and they were anything but the same based on the answers they gave me. As a matter of fact, they even differed in skin color. And yet, would you ask me to identify them by a picture from their inside? I wouldn't be able to. My parents were right. We are the same on the inside. That moment was so powerful that I couldn't hold back my tears. I don't know what the surgeon thought of that. Never become a surgeon, maybe. But it was there that I also understood that being the same on the inside meant more than just having the same organs. the philosophy of the family mantra finally found its place in my head and in my heart. It was there in that room that my family mantra and my chameleon skills melted together to create what would become my work strategy as a doctor. It was there in that moment that the understanding of common grounds in connecting our differences made an imprint in my heart. And with this imprint, I started my personal development in the communication with my patients. I made it my first goal to find a common ground in every consultation. Soon, my superiors noticed that patients told me way more than an average patient would tell its doctor. Very confusing for them, I think. But I was convinced that this was because we found something that made us relate to each other. Because the trust did not only come from the patients that looked like me, had the same background as me, or spoke the same languages. No, even the people that were supposed to be the complete opposite of who I am told me anything I needed to know, and way more most of the times. To give you an illustration but for what I mean by saying finding a common ground, I will give you some patients out of my work. The first patient that comes up is an old man, old enough to be my grandfather. He consulted me as a patient for the very first time, and as he walked in, he looked at me as if he saw an alien. That short little girl with her scarf is going to be my doctor? I could hear him think. I saw the hesitation, and I could taste his distrust. I had read his medical file right before he came in. That's what you do when you don't know a patient. And I saw that he was born in a region called Spakenburg, which is near to the city where I grew up in. Spakenburg is known for a sweet delight called Spakenburgse harte, a kind of cookie I love and grew up with. So I took a leap of faith. Instead of asking him about his medical condition, that's what you do as a doctor, right? I asked him about his birthplace, and I told him that I loved Spakenburgse harte. At first, he looked at me with confusion. What is she saying? And then this sparkle appeared in his eyes, and I knew I made the connection. The rest of the medical consultation went very fine, and he started asking for the little doctor that loved Spakenburgse harte. So I saw him many times after that. The second patient that comes up in my mind is a patient I saw during my residency. One day, a superior walked up to me and he said, "Do you speak Farsi?" Well, I speak a lot of languages, but I do not speak Farsi. Why did he ask me that? I asked. He said that an older Afghan woman came in, and it was very difficult to help her because she didn't speak Dutch. I asked my superior if I could take on the challenge and see if I could help her, maybe. I saw that he didn't think much of it, but he agreed. So I went in, and I saw this elderly lady wearing a scarf. I walked up to her, and I greeted her with the Islamic greeting, which I knew she would understand, and then introduced myself. She shook my hand and, "Doctor?" she asked. "Yes," I said. I saw this big smile appear on her face, and she said, "Farsi?" "No," I said. The disappointment came back in her face, and she looked so lost. This look I recognized. My grandma would have the same look. You feel lost when you cannot express yourself in your own language. So I reached out for her hand, put it in between my hands, looked at her and said in Dutch, "You remind me of my grandmother. Let's do this, let's try. Maybe we'll find a way." The big smile appeared again, and I started to ask her simple Dutch questions. To my big surprise, she answered almost all of them. Okay, her Dutch was not perfect, and we had to use our hands and we had to use our foot, but I understood what she meant. So I asked her, "Why didn't you use the same skills with the other doctors? Maybe they would have understood you too. The sad face appeared again. She said, I didn't feel very confident, and I'm afraid to be embarrassed and judged, because I know my Dutch is not well enough, even when I've lived in Holland for such a time. I dared to ask her, why do you trust me? She said, you compared me to your grandmother. That made me feel like you were my granddaughter, and a granddaughter I trust. What sharing of such a simple common ground can do for your conversation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't speak Farsi. I just told her she looked like my grandmother. These lessons I've learned are so powerful, the lesson of my parents, the lesson of my patients, that I felt obliged to share them with you. This is my idea worth spreading. So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you feel like you are drowning in the differences with the person that is in front of you, please remember my family mantra. Because I can assure you that this person looks just like you from the inside. And this is a common ground you'll have with every human being walking on this earth. Thank you.